Our next speaker is Ben Vidgen. Ben is former Army, he's a published writer. His books include State Secrets and State Secrets 2. Now I want to read those.
Good afternoon all. I'd also like to say that I also do a show on Radio 1 on Sundays, The Postman Show. Over the last couple of months I've interviewed a couple of very interesting guys. One was Walter McIntosh, who worked for the CIA for 20 years, and the other one was Glenn Carl, who also worked for the CIA for over 20 years. In fact, will be on my show in about 2 or 3 weeks from now. These gentlemen are probably about two of scores and scores of people I've met over my life who worked in the intelligence service and the security forces. And what I find quite interesting is the response I get when talking to these gentlemen about their approach to this bill. And they give me about 6 reasons why they think that the GCS bill is basically an affront not just to New Zealand's sovereignty, but to our national security. The first one is, well, where's the threat? As James pointed out, the only sort of real act of terrorism that we had is from the French government, our friends, when they blew up the Rainbow Warrior in 1987. Of course, the other sort of threat that we have at the moment is from the destabilisation of the Pacific caused by private military contracts, companies who operate in places like Fiji, the Solomons, and the PNG. Now what's interesting about this is you don't actually need a GCS bill or a surveillance tool to prevent this. There is in fact the legislation in Parliament at the moment, in the third reading of the anti-mercenary bill, which would actually prohibit this from actually happening, yet National won't actually turn around and put that through its third reading because it obviously affects their powers in big business. So that's the first reason. The second reason basically is this goes against the basic principles of checks and balances that occur in any security apparatus as a standard operating procedure. In other words, you don't have your intelligence service agency both spying on your domestic as well as your foreign powers, because this creates a centralisation of power which leads to natural abuse, which is something that my grandfather, Major Robinson Cox, fought 4 years in World War II to prevent. And I find it quite ironic because my grandfather was also a staunch national voter and he would not be supporting this bill at all if he was around today. The third thing about this bill is it actually hands power over to a foreign power, and at this stage what we really need to be doing is looking at the bill in terms of the greater picture, in terms of, first of all, if you read books like Nicky Hager's Secret Powers or John Pilcher's many of his books, because he goes into this in several extensions, or even you read the US Embassy's own cables via WikiLeaks, you'll discover that the GCSB's chief facilities are in fact controlled not by professional New Zealand intelligence officers who are loyal to the country of New Zealand, but they are in fact operated by officers of the National Security Agency, which is of course a US spy agency. In fact, they are part of the Department of Defence, and they would not be able to do this back in the United States because it would actually breach our own laws, but hey, we can do it here. The other aspect of it is the context, is that 2 things happened in 2007 that were of significance. The first one is in Otago House in Auckland. There was a symposium that was held and it was chaired by the US New Zealand Chamber of Commerce and attended by a who's who of the intelligence community, titled Taking Back the Internet. And it made it very, very clear that the idea was to basically make the internet a tool of big business and to enforce their monopolies. So again, this is not about national security, this is about vested interests.